I didn't know what marriage was about at that point. I didn't know that men and women have, any kind of intimate relationship. So I was just like, okay, I just have to live with this guy. And he's nice, he's handsome, he's everything a girl could think of as far as she didn't know anything else. So I was very impressed, yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Frida Beisel, and I host this channel in which I explore various topics related to Judaism and New York City, but especially on Hasidic Judaism, because that's where I come from. Today, for my long-form interview series, I'll be talking to Fradel Neuman, who comes from the same insular village of Kiryas Joel as I do. She, like me, got married in an arranged marriage and became a mother at a young age. That's as much as our paths have in common. While I divorced and left the fold, Frattle is in the community with her husband of 9 years, is raising a family there. I'm so grateful she agreed to come on to tell her story. Welcome, Frattle.
I'm happy to be here.
How are you doing?
Good.
Can I ask you to start by telling us about your childhood in Kiryas Joel?
Yes. So my childhood was very typical, the typical Kiryas Joel child. I grew up with a lot of siblings. My parents have 10 kids. I am the ninth out of 10 and the youngest girl. So we are 7 girls and 3 boys. I grew up very typical, but also a little more sheltered than a lot of the kids in my community. So while other families will allow certain things or allow listening to certain music, my family wasn't like that. So I was very, very sheltered. And that was basically my childhood. Very typical. I got engaged at 17 and I got married soon after.
You talk a little bit on social media, which is where I got to know you, and you have a lovely Instagram account, which I'm going to link in the video description and in the video directly. You talk a little bit about struggling as a child.
Yes. So there was a lot of abuse when I was young. I mean, until I got married, basically. Not as much to me as to my siblings, that I've witnessed a lot of abuse. I also have a personal history of sexual abuse, emotional and verbal abuse, a whole bunch of things that, which brought me to where I am today, the journey that I'm on. But there was a lot of physical abuse to one of my siblings that basically got me into a very deep depression when I was actually 17, when I was engaged.
An older sibling?
No, a younger sibling.
A younger sibling.
The one that's below me, yes.
Got it. Were you able to do something about it? Did you have any role in that?
I actually did tell my father at that point. I not prefer. I would really appreciate if the abuse didn't happen in front of me, because I couldn't take it. So I was like, I know he deserved that or whatever, but I understand why he had to go through that, but it shouldn't, can you please not do it in front of me? And he actually understood, which is, I give him credit for that.
What do you mean he deserved it?
Well, according to my father, he deserved it.
Got it.
Not according to me, obviously.
So your parents were the ones who were creating the situation at home, right? Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Have you talked to them about it since, as an adult?
I have in the past, not like a year or two ago, but more like a few years after I got married, maybe 3 years after I got married.
You're now public about it. How's that worked? What have been the ramifications of that?
So far, I haven't had any really bad ramifications about it. I have questions from people like who did what or whatever. And I don't go into detail about what exactly happened. It's just, I just say it in general, very general way that I have a lot of trauma from my childhood.
Are you in talking terms with your parents at this point?
Yes, very much so.
Are you feeling like forgiveness is a part of your journey?
Very much, yes. So when I first told my mother especially about how I felt at that point when I was younger, she was very apologetic. She completely understood what was happening to me, and she was very understanding of my journey. At one point, I had a period of time where I didn't like going to my parents just because it brought up a lot of memories for me. And I told her that. Because I didn't want her to think that I'm just not coming to her because I don't like her. I wanted her to know that there's a reason behind it and that hopefully it'll pass. So I told her that. And then with a lot of healing, I was able to get to a point where I have a very good relationship with them and we go through all the time. And it's good now. It's just that I had this period of time where I was very into my healing, and in order to be properly into it, I wasn't able to spend a lot of time there.
Something from my own journey, which hasn't been easy either, because we have old school parents who were, right? I'm sure your grandparents are also Holocaust survivors who raised our parents, and they came with a lot of baggage as well. And I feel like my parents tried their best. But what I often find people say is like, it's not forgivable kind of thing, or you need to be angry. How do you feel about that?
I don't think I need to be angry. I think that however it is in my healing journey at any certain point is, if I need to take a break, I take a break. But that hasn't happened in years, just because I think my parents did the best that they could with the tools that they had.
It seems your home life was hard. Am I right?
Yes.
Do your siblings share this feeling? Or do you talk to them about it?
Yeah, we do. And yes, they share this feeling.
Would you say that school was a relief from that?
Definitely.
How would you describe the experience of going to school? Because I think the outsider sees you as like, or me, we both were in the same, like, we both went to Beisterachel, right?
Yes.
Like they see these little girls running around, or these teenage girls as very repressed and sad and deprived. And I'd love to hear how you look back to these years.
So at that point, I did not feel oppressed at all. I felt like a happy-go-lucky girl. I'm not talking about when I was 18 and I had this very specific trauma. I'm talking about when I was younger. I was a very happy-go-lucky kid. I had one good friend and a couple of others that I was close with, and I enjoyed going to school mostly because it was a reprieve of life at home.
Were you a good girl as a child in general?
Well, it depends in what area. In school, I was not a very well-behaved girl, but at home, I was a well-behaved girl. You could say that.
What happened in school?
I just was having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
What I couldn't do at home, I kind of did that in school. Like at home, there was no disobeying, and at school, I was like, okay, it's not my parents. I can do whatever I want. I mean, not whatever I want, but it was sort of the rebellious part of me came out in school.
What about at home, can I ask?
Yeah, it was just a strict no. Like whatever your parents tell you to do, that's what you do.
Yeah. What was your highlight of school, can I ask?
Knowing that there's still a whole day ahead of me and I get to spend the next 7 hours in school. And the worst part was when we went home. It was hard for me. As the day neared the end, I was like, oh, we have to go home now.
Were you popular?
No. Not at all. I had one very good friend, so I was totally fine.
I see. Were you shy?
I wasn't shy. I was a little awkward.
I see. Did the school provide mental health support?
So I wouldn't say they provided mental health support, but some of the teachers saw that there was something going on with me, and they tried like talking to me and getting out of me like what was happening. But I was in denial mostly. I didn't dare say anything.
Were you afraid of speaking up? Was that it? Or you
Yes.
didn't? I see.
Yes. At one point, I did speak to one teacher in private after she promised me that she won't tell anybody at all. That was helpful. I actually went to her house and we spoke, and I told her everything that was going on at home. And that was the first time I actually got it all out,
Did she keep her word?
She did, yes.
That's good. That's good.
I mean, as far as I know, at least.
Right. Because, obviously it can be really scary when you entrust someone and they don't keep their word. Did you feel like marriage was going to be a release from your struggles at home?
Yes. That's why I was so excited to get married.
Not because of him so much.
No, to be honest, no. When they first read the shidduch, I was like, okay, yes. Before I even knew who we were talking about, like I was like, okay, yes. I wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
At the time, I was going through a very rough patch. I had a lot of issues at school because of the situation at home. Like I wasn't doing well academically. I was just depressed. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I was not in a good place.
Can you talk about your engagement? Were you excited to get engaged?
I was, mostly because I wanted to have a family too. I think that I was excited for the next chapter of my life, even though in this arranged marriage, the way it works is that you just have like a 40-minute, what we call a basho. Which is just a meeting of 45 minutes with your potential spouse. And at the end of the meeting, you say yes or no. To be honest, most people say yes because you've gone through all this trouble to get to that point. And I said yes. And I was very, very happy.
Was he the first boy you met?
He was the first boy I've met, yes.
Is 17 not young? Were you one of the youngest in your class?
It is considered to be younger, but I was like the 20th kala in my age. I was the 20th girl that got engaged. I wasn't one of the first ones. No.
Is it okay if I ask you a little more about your engagement? Because I would love to
Yeah.
get a sense. Okay. So how long do you think it took? Did you know that your parents were discussing a match for you?
Yes. So the whole like matchmaking thing was very, very short. It was a total of 4 days. So the boy was basically discussed. They were what we call ret to my parents on a Friday, and I was engaged by the next Tuesday.
And your parents told you that they were discussing something.
So they told me probably by Sunday, but by Monday night they told me who they were just talking about. So I didn't know who the boy was until Monday night.
When you found out, did you know who he was?
Yes, I knew his family very well. I wasn't sure if it was him or his brother, but I knew the family very well. Yes.
I see. Did you have a chance to see him before you met him?
No.
Not at all.
I mean, no, maybe I could have asked. I just didn't think to.
I see. Did he see you?
I don't think so. No, maybe a picture. I'm not sure.
I see. Did you do genetic testing because of the genetic issues in the community? There's always genetic testing. Did you do that before you met him?
So we do that in 11th or the 12th grade in the school. Like everybody does it, or like 99% of the girls. It's like they call down the Dayushurim, which is like the people that do the testing for you. And they draw blood from everybody so that when there's a prospect of a boy, they just have to check if you're compatible or not. So I didn't have to go through the process of drawing blood then and then waiting for results because my results are already in the system.
But even before you met, that's when I'm wondering when they did the genetic testing, like compatibility testing. I know they had the blood sample. They collect the blood sample in school when you're still in 11th grade. And then before you meet or after you meet, do they do the compatibility test?
They do it like usually the day of the meeting, like before, after all the information is exchanged and they ask around about the boy or the girl. And then right before they want to actually sit the boy and girl down, that's when they check for the results.
Uh-huh. Did you have any concept of boys at that point? Like,
no, I did not.
No. So can I ask what your impression was? Where was the meeting?
So it was in my sister's house. We just choose a random place, like a nice clean house, nothing fancy. There was water on the table. First, what we did was sit with my parents and his parents and me and him. So it's all of us together. And then the parents leave the room and it's just the boy and the girl.
Where's your sister?
She wasn't home.
Oh, okay. What was your impression? What was the meeting like? Can I ask?
Again, I did not know what to expect. I did know the family well, but I did not know if we were referring to this boy or his brother. So when he first came in, I was like, okay, cool. Nothing major. I didn't know what marriage was about at that point. I didn't know that men and women have, any kind of intimate relationship. So I was just like, okay, I just have to live with this guy, And he's nice, he's handsome, he's everything a girl could think of as far as she didn't know anything else. So I was very impressed, yes.
Do you remember what you talked about?
We talked about really mundane things. My father is a Rebbe in Chaydet, so we talked about that he taught my husband when he was in the grade that my father taught. So we talked about that. We talked about my siblings. We talked about his siblings. We talked about there was a spider on the ceiling and it just felt off on the table in the middle. And I remember my husband seeing me like pull back because I'm scared of spiders. So he grabbed the tissue and he took it off. And I was like, okay, I want him.
Oh, that's cute.
As mundane as that is, but yeah.
So did you have a say in?
I did have a say. I was just very excited to get married. So I said yes. And with good reason. He's a very good guy. So I didn't know much, but the little I did know, I was excited about that part of my life.
Like your parents called you aside?
When we finished, he went to his parents, I went to my parents, and they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Yes." And my parents asked, "Do you want to sleep it over?" And I said, "No, I'm good."
Oh, wow. How long were you engaged for?
I was engaged for 8 months.
Did you have contact during the engagement?
No, we actually met once by accident, and it was like, "Oh, I got to run away."
Is that what you did?
I did, yes.
Does he know? Did he realize it was his bride?
Yes, we both realized. We talked about it after the wedding. We both knew that it was each other.
Were you one of those brides that are crazy about their grooms and sleep with a picture of him under their pillow?
No.
Did you go to the
No.
synagogue to look through the women's balcony to see him?
Yes, I did that.
You did do that.
Yeah, I did that at weddings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, did you enjoy that? Did he see you?
He did not see me. No, it was more of like a secret thing. Oh, I'm going to go look at my chusen, you know?
He's not supposed to see you. I'm just going to explain this to the viewers. He's not supposed to see you, but you're allowed to see him. And you're not talking on the phone. You're not seeing each other, right?
No, none of that.
But you are sending each other gifts.
Yes, with little poems or, just a few words.
What was the highlight of your engagement?
The highlight of my engagement? That's a good question. First, there was the Tnoyim. So that was probably a highlight for me, which we got a chance to, that was the one time we did talk, was after the Tnoyim, we got to sit down for like half an hour.
A Tnoyim,
we just open up our gifts.
I'm just
like
going to
an
explain.
Engagement party.
It's like an engagement party, yeah.
We got down to talk and we just sat there for a few minutes. We opened up our gifts, packed it all up, and took it home with me for when we find our apartment, and then we get to like unpack it all.
What about the apartment? You set up an apartment for the two of you?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
I did. I'm creative, so I liked setting it up, making the towel closet fancy with like little flowers and stuff. So I definitely enjoyed that part.
So when you got married, from the pictures that we see, you wore a different head covering that you're wearing now.
I did.
Can you explain what you wore then?
Yeah. So what I wore then is called a spitzel. It's basically, I don't know, it's like a lot of fabric sewn, not fabric, it's just like, I don't even know how
threads.
To explain it, but
it's threads.
It's like
right?
a lot of threads. Yeah. A lot of threads sewn together. And then on top of it, I wore a tichel, which is a scarf.
Did you put padding in the tichel?
I did. I did put a little padding in the tichel, yeah, just like to give it some height.
So gets like definition. It's more flattering.
Yes.
So what's the significance of the spitzel, would you say?
So the significance of the spitzel is that it's not similar to here. It doesn't look like here in any way, shape, or form. And then the other significance is tradition, which is what my mother wore that. And, it's just what my family wears. And so I was expected to do that as well.
Did you want to wear it?
I didn't have any other, I wasn't informed that I have the option of saying, oh, I want something else.
The morning after your wedding is when you put on this new head covering.
Yes.
Would you say putting on a spitzel defined you in the community in a way versus wearing what you're wearing now, which is a wig?
Well, I think it definitely defined me in a way that I did what my parents did. I wore what my mother wore.
Got it.
My father actually comes from a shaitel family, which is what I wear now. My aunts wear shaitels.
A more modern family.
It's considered more modern in my community. But my father was the one that married a spitzel, which is my mother. And it was just, we were very tzniusdik, which is modest. We were expected to dress in a very modest way, even more than some other families in KJ. There are a lot of levels, and I was expected to dress a certain way.
Like, can you give examples of how you were more modest than your friends?
Yes. So, for example, my skirts would be 5 or 6 inches below the knee, while others were like 4 or 3. Or my hair, I couldn't wear my hair down unless it was really, really short.
I
was
wore
expected
braids?
to have a ponytail. No, I did not wear braids.
Braids is even more extreme.
Braids is even more extreme, yes.
Did your father marry your mother because he wanted to be more conservative? Is that what it was?
I think so. Also because he went to learn in Argentina, which is where my mother lived. He went to learn when he was like 17 or 18. His mother was sick. So his father actually was sick, or both of them. I don't remember. But his father wasn't very involved in his life. So he moved there to learn. And the shidduch was read to him when he was there. So since my mother wore a spitzel, he just, he married into the spitzel family.
So after all of this difficult childhood at home, you get engaged and all your friends are engaged, right?
Yeah.
And you don't know anything about boys.
No.
Except what you learned before the wedding, right?
Yeah, that was 2 weeks before I got married, so.
Yeah, that's when they told you. Can I ask what your wedding day was like?
It was nice. It was very emotional. I was very, very excited. Mostly just to start this new chapter and start over. It was very typical. Nothing crazy went on. They did my hair. We didn't wear makeup, so we didn't have a professional makeup artist. I just had my sister put some blush on my face, and that was it.
Did you go to the cemetery on the day of the wedding?
No.
I don't know. I went to the cemetery on the day of the wedding, and that's what I think of when I think of the emotions of a wedding day. I think of being in the cemetery.
No, we didn't do that.
No. Did you invite the grandparents that had passed away in some way?
I don't think so, no.
No.
I mean, maybe I just sent an invitation to my grandparents are one set of them lived in Argentina. They're not alive anymore, but at that point they lived in Argentina. And the other one I'm named after my father's mother. So they both passed young. I'm just thinking if I did like some sort of invitation, I probably invited them by prayer or something.
Yeah, I would imagine. I think that's the tradition. I'm not telling you what you did. The wedding itself was when you first really got to meet your husband. Would you say that?
Yes.
How was the wedding day? Can I ask?
Yeah. So lucky for me, my husband went to an amazing, what they call a Husten teacher. You want to explain what that is?
I have covered it a little bit, but it's a teacher who prepares the couple for their intimate life and reveals, often for the first time you find out about sex.
I went to a Kala teacher that was very frum, very Hasidic, very old school. And she taught me the very basics, like the basic of the basics, very, very minimal. Nothing about emotional intimacy or about pleasure or things like that. Luckily for me, my husband went to someone who was the exact opposite. He spoke widely about everything that they really need to know: emotional intimacy, pleasure for the wife, literally anything. And when we first got into the yichud room, I was very confused. I was scared. It was the first time actually being with my husband. And my husband seemed very comfortable. And it was a little bit of a contradiction because he was happy and I was just scared.
Did that put you at ease?
Yes, very much. He was very, very comfortable. He calmed me down. We sat down to eat. We were doing great. I was just very scared. And at that point, I really let out a sigh. I was like, okay, this isn't as bad as it sounds, because he had a very good education.
He looked after you.
Yes. And I think he realized that I was taught very, very little, like the bare minimum. And he made sure to make me feel comfortable, which I appreciate to this day.
You take the right foot into a marriage. It makes such a big difference, and feeling safe in a marriage is so important. I'm just interested in touching a tiny bit on your wedding. Did you enjoy the dancing and everything, the women's only dancing?
Yes, I had a lot of fun. I love to dance. I had fun with my friends, with my family, danced the night away, didn't think about anything else. I was having fun.
Wow. So you got married as a young newlywed with this new husband. Was it a major adjustment to live with a man?
It definitely was. I don't remember it being very difficult. I think my husband made it very easy on me. But it was definitely an adjustment that, needed adjusting. I needed to get used to it.
Did you find that the community provides support in getting the couple off to a good start?
Like in what way? Like financially or like?
No. Just the community attitudes about marriage or the lectures available.
Yeah. So a week after we got married, we actually went to my husband's Husin teacher in Williamsburg. He doesn't live local, so we traveled in and he just gave us a lot of tips, talked to us about how everything went. He was very accommodating and I appreciated that very much because it was a way of just talking to the guy that taught him, but both of us together.
How many kids do you have, by the way?
I have 4.
Can I ask how old you are?
Yes, I'm 27.
You're 27. Were you surprised by what married life ended up being like?
Oh, yes, very much.
How so?
First of all, when I got married, I wanted to get pregnant right away, just like everyone else, everyone else is having babies. Like, why shouldn't I? I did not end up getting pregnant right away. And I was devastated as if I'm dealing with infertility. There was nothing wrong with me, but I was just like, everybody else is pregnant. I want to be pregnant too. And I just want to experience that part of life. And I was surprised at how much I wanted this because I was never very attached to my nieces and nephews. I didn't consider myself the type that would want kids the second they get married. But I also at a month after my wedding, I was like, I want to be pregnant so badly.
Wow.
So I was surprised at myself. And I was also surprised with the support from my husband because I thought he was just going to let me deal with this on my own. And he was absolutely there for me the entire time, saying it's going to happen for us. We just need to wait. We need to try. We need to, do whatever we need to do.
How long after your wedding did you have your first?
So I had my first about, I I got pregnant at like 7 months after I got married. So like about 16 months after my wedding, I had my first baby.
At which point did you start on your what I'd call a maturing journey? You seem to have gone through a journey. What happened in
Yes.
married life that started this?
So when I had my first baby, I had a very difficult labor and delivery. I had a 40-hour labor to be exact. And at one point, the doctor saw that nothing was moving. So she recommended my husband call the doula, someone that was very good with first-time moms. And from one month to the next, this doula came over. She was there like an hour later. And it's not something we had booked before. She was very accommodating. She came over and as soon as she got there, things started moving. She calmed me down. She gave me the necessary tools. And then at the 40-hour mark, it was an induced labor. And at the 40-hour mark, I had my first baby. Now, after that, she was very easygoing with contacting her after the baby was born. She was like, call me anytime, let's be in touch. And I was very appreciative of that because I was very confused. I had no idea what I was supposed to do.
Your mother wasn't in the picture?
She was in the picture. She was just, I'm the ninth out of 10. She wasn't in the childbearing ages anymore. So it's not like, she had sort of forgotten how we do stuff. And I'm sure if I would have asked, she would have helped me. For some reason, I felt like I needed someone exterior, someone from the outside to help me. And I started talking to this doula a lot. And then I talked to her about life, about my traumas, about, a lot of things. And she recommended that I see a therapist. And they say the rest is history because that's when I started started therapy. And that's been my journey. I've been to therapy ever since.
What's been the journey? What's changed through this starting to go on this journey?
So much has changed. In the beginning, I was I was still in denial about I knew that what I went through wasn't normal. I just didn't know how to properly take care of it, like how to express it and how to work on it. And so I went to therapy, but it was very mundane, basic therapy. It was like what we call talk therapy. It's just, I spoke about my week. She gave me some tools, some tips, and I left. That's what it was every week. And then I had my second baby 14 months after I had the first, which was quite a shock. And then we took a little break. I was finally introduced to birth control.
Was it something you were introduced as an okay thing? Because it's kind of maybe, no?
Well, it depends who introduces it to you.
Different people have different attitudes about it.
Yes. So I was introduced to it by my doctor. And, obviously the doctor was okay with me being on birth control because I had two babies 14 months apart.
Did you ask a rabbi?
Me to that. We did, yes.
You need to have consent from a rabbi to take birth control. But if the rabbi says you have to have like emotional or physical needs for birth control?
I think they ask you for at least one reason as to why you want to be a birth control.
Okay, got it.
I don't remember what my reason was. I was just overwhelmed. I had two kids 14 months apart. I wasn't managing.
Yeah.
There were two boys. So you can just try and imagine what that looks like.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. Did you worry about going to therapy that there's an attitude about people who receive mental health?
Honestly, no.
No.
For some reason, I was very okay with going to therapy. It helped me a lot. Just I had someone to talk to, even though I didn't do any actual real work or anything major. It just helped me. I had someone to talk to every week. For 45 minutes, I just sat there and told that person everything I wanted to say.
And then it seems you said you went to some different therapy afterwards.
Yes. So after 3 years, I felt like I was ready to do some work. That was almost 3 years ago. I had been with this therapist with the first one for 3 years, and I had my third baby around 4 years ago, and I had postpartum depression after that baby. I was in a really, really bad place, and we figured, okay, the talk therapy isn't working anymore. I need more help. I need more in-depth, support. So I started seeing a therapist, a trauma therapist, which I see to this day. And she has been my lifeline, my rock. She's been the biggest person in my healing journey who has helped me so much. So that was been happening the last almost 3 years.
Fradel, you also have a business, right? When did that start?
Yes, I do. So that started actually when I had my postpartum depression. My husband was out of a job by choice. And I
Why?
was in a very bad place. He was just working crazy hours, which was not working with my journey at that point. He was working in New Jersey. It was a lot of traveling. So even if he left work at 6, he got home at 7, which was bedtime. And it was very difficult for me handling the kids on my own because I had postpartum depression. At that point, we decided that we couldn't afford a photographer. So I said, maybe I take pictures of my baby myself. And I did. And somehow they ended up looking really good. And when I showed it to people, they were saying like, oh, you should go into photography. So I did. And the rest is history.
Can you tell me more about your business? What do you do?
Yeah. So I'm a portrait photographer. I do small events as well, but I take pictures of newborns, upsharing kids, milestones, family pictures, outdoors, indoors. I have a studio in my house. So it started out really small, and then it's, at this point it's a very, it's a full-time thing almost.
Kids from the community, Hasidic kids from Kiryas Joel.
Yes.
So what was it like for a woman in Kiryas Joel to start a business? Can you explain that?
The business I was starting was very accepted. There wasn't anything wrong with starting a business. At least I didn't think that, I didn't get any attitude about it. But when I did my first advertisement, which was a picture of my own baby, she was wearing just like a wrap on the lower part of her body, and it was like a crop picture, and her top, like from here to like mid abdomen was like naked. And I got a lot of hate for that.
What do you mean you got a lot of hate? What happened?
So people called me up and like, why are you posting pictures of a baby without clothing on? And I was honestly, I was stammering because I was so shocked. I felt like they were just, I don't know, either being hateful or sexualizing my kid. It was very off.
Did you post it on Instagram or you posted it on?
No, it was in the local books.
In the community connections, like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
In the local publication. So people just find your phone number or see the phone number, call you, and they say hello?
Yes. They say, hello, I just want to tell you. And some of them were nice at least, but the others were like really, really mean. How dare you post a picture of a baby without clothing on? It's so not sneeze and everything. I was honestly so caught off guard. I was very shocked. And I was so like confused. I was like, should I close my business? Like, am I like this really bad person? But I pushed through that because it was the very beginning and we needed money. Not that I made any money in the beginning of my business, but it was also, I needed that for my creative outlet. I had postpartum depression. I wasn't doing well. I needed to be away from my baby for a few hours every day. I needed to do something for my mental health. And that was, giving out my creativity.
Did it not make you angry at the community? Like, how did it make you feel towards the community?
It did. I was very angry that people thought that a picture of a 2-month-old or less was a problem.
But you're in the community.
Yes. After a few months, I advertised again. And at that point, I made sure like not to post anything that could possibly be a problem for some people, just because I didn't want to hurt my business. And I figured, and I was such a beginner at that point that I thought if I post something that some people don't like, it'll give me a really bad name. I don't think that's true. Like at this point in my business, I don't think that's true. But at that point, I was very careful because I wanted to build up my business. And then there was one other time where I got negative feedback when I posted a picture of my 2 sons. That was 2 years ago, actually. I posted a picture of my 2 sons, and one of my sons was holding his hand in his pocket, and people texted me and called me telling that that's inappropriate.
Because holding the hands in the pocket is not okay for boys.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, it's one thing if they're older because...
Yeah, but they were pretty young. They were like 4 and 5 at that point.
The most amazing thing about you, to me, is that in my time, and I'm not so much older than you. I'm not like a dinosaur. I'm significantly older than you. I'm going to be 40 in a month. But in my time, doing what you are doing, which is to create a business and a public voice, would have been the end of my time in Kiryas Joel. That's what I think.
I hear that.
I think it was more rigid. I don't know. I want to hear what happened afterwards because you started to develop a public voice, right? How did you come on to Instagram?
2 years ago, 2.5 actually, in June of 2022, there was a 3-day holiday, Kiryas, and I was, I guess, not in a good place mentally. And I was just thinking about my life. And I was thinking to myself, I can't be the only one struggling with mental health and trauma and CPTSD. Like, there's got to be more people. There's no way I'm just this only person struggling alone. And I figured I already had an Instagram account at that point for my business. And I figured, let me try to open one for my personal life, to discuss things like that. And within 2 days, there were 1,000 people on my page, and everyone said the same thing. I went through something so similar to you, and I need support. Like, I just want to be here, see what you have to offer.
What do you get out of your public profile?
It's a lot that I get out of it, as in for my mental health, regarding my mental health. It gives me a lot of empathy, support, knowing that I'm not the only one struggling today. And when I do struggle, I post about it. And some people say, oh, wow, I'm feeling the same way. Or some people just give support. They're just there to listen. And also what I get is the gratification of helping others, because I've directed a lot of others to therapy or to start their own mental health journey. And that's it's a very good feeling.
Fradel, the first time I heard of you was when you went public talking about trauma, talking about your struggles, mental health. You're wearing a spitzel, which is symbolically so conservative. It's like the most sheltered of the sheltered. And it made ripples everywhere. I got so many messages from different people who are like, did you see this woman? It's not easy to speak out when you just speaking out causes such a strong spotlight to suddenly descend on you. You then continued to stay in the public eye and eventually made a public change. Like, you changed your physical appearance, right? What was that like, the experience of changing head covering?
So it is something we have been thinking about for about a year, my husband and I, and I really wanted to do it for a very long time. I just felt like I'm going to get so much heat from my family, and I wasn't ready for that. Then at one point I was ready, after a lot of therapy and talking about it with my therapist and my husband and discussing it back and forth. I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this, and I'm ready to deal with the ramifications that it may bring. And then I did. I went up to my parents. I told them this and this, like, it's happening. My mother was devastated.
What did she say?
We spoke about it in depth. I can't share exactly what she said, because I don't want to hurt her or, do anything that's going to harm her. But by now she's supportive. I'm just going to say that.
Are you wearing on top of your...
It was a journey. I'm wearing this.
You wear a snood.
I wear a band, like a
Okay,
this.
Got it. Okay, I see. Very nice. I really like your wig.
Yeah.
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. Was she afraid that this is going to be the beginning of more changes?
She was very afraid that this is like a roller coaster of this is just going to get the ball rolling to something a lot worse. And I understand where she's coming from. I have 3 siblings that are not religious anymore, so I understand her fear. And I tried explaining to her that it's not the case. I just hated how I looked on the spitzel. I just really disliked myself when I looked in the mirror. And, I even said to my mother, I know this is not going to make me happy. Happiness is from within, and this isn't something that's just going to make me magically be a happy person. And my mother knew at that point that I was struggling. I told my mother that I know that it's going to give me some, something to let me go forward. It's going to give me a push to continue going in my journey.
Was it simply about the physical appearance of the spitzel versus the wig, or was there an identity issue that was
for
involved?
Me or for her?
For you, the change.
There definitely was an identity, I sort of had an identity crisis, which was basically I did not feel like myself in my spitzel. I felt like it just doesn't belong to me.
Because it's like the spitzel is it's more than just the look. It identifies your place in the community as a very pious, almost like a rebbetzin. Not like as a stylish businesswoman, photographer lady.
Yeah, it just didn't match my vibe anymore.
What was the reaction in the community writ large?
It was a lot, to say the least. There were a lot of comments, mostly good ones, people coming up and saying, oh, you look so good, whatever. And then there was a lot of backlash from both sides, my parents, my in-laws. It wasn't easy. Regarding the community on Instagram, they were mostly very supportive. I got a lot of very supportive messages. People were very happy for me. And, I got courage from other people that did the same, that changed before I did. And it was good to have a support system.
Did you have a big coming out moment?
I did. I posted about it.
What did you write?
I just wrote that I'm changing my headgear and I'm putting on a sheitel. And I wrote, everything that I that I felt at that point, that I knew it's not going to bring me magically happy, but this is what I felt I needed to do at that time for myself, for my own journey.
Kol hakavod. Okay, so did you think it might be part of a bigger religious change?
I did. And that's why we thought like about a year before we actually made the decision, because I myself was afraid of this becoming just like a whole issue that's just going to go further and further, and I didn't want that. I was just trying to feel like myself, and I didn't want to become like irreligious or something. I just wanted to like how I looked in the mirror. So I did think about it. Yeah.
Can I ask what role faith plays in your life?
So it depends at what part of my life. I had a few years where I was really, really struggling. I had a very hard time. And that's because I was raised in a way of, I wasn't raised with love to Hashem, with God. It was just like a fear of him instead of love.
How has that changed for you?
So it's changed with basically me like scratching everything about religion in my head, not physically, but like in my head, just like taking away everything I've learned and then relearning everything in a good way.
Is God and faith an important part of your life now?
I wouldn't say it's very important to me, but I definitely I'm in a place where I was a lot worse in the past. So yes, I would say it's an important part of my life right now, and it was a journey, and it still is. I'm far from perfect in that regard. I mean, I'm far from perfect in every regard, but in this regard specifically, it's something that I still struggle with.
So you're in one of the most insular Hasidic communities, sharing, thank you so candidly about your life. One of the biggest fears I had when I was in Kiryas Joel that kept me from doing anything publicly was my son was in the Satmar yeshiva, in the Satmar Chayde, in the Satmar school system, and I was afraid he would be expelled and that I would have no school for him if I didn't fall in line. Something that I didn't have was support from my husband of the time. It seems your husband's very supportive of you. Are you concerned about your children being in the moistas, that's what we call them, being in the Satmar school system and speaking?
Am I concerned? I definitely was in the beginning more than I am now. Like when I first opened my page, I was definitely like, this might lead to real repercussions. But I was willing to take a chance.
What would you have done if they kicked your kids out?
I probably would have, if I think about it now, I probably would have begged them to let me stay. And I probably would have promised that, like, to close my Instagram account or something like that. I'd probably do something like that to keep my kids in the moistus. I'd imagine so. By now, I don't think I can or want to do that. Like if it ever does lead to repercussions. But so far it hasn't. So I'm just living in the moment, trying to help people as long as I can, help myself as long as I can, and see where it goes.
Why do you think they haven't done anything?
So I'm not sure. Like there's really no logical explanation for that, because my account is pretty public. There are over 3,000 people there, and some of them are bound to what we call tattle on me. But I don't think it just didn't happen. And I'm not sure why. Maybe they're turning a blind eye because the work I do is important. Maybe they're just afraid of starting up with me. They're just not saying anything.
Good. Let's keep it that way.
Yeah.
Is it important for you, for your children to be in the school system there?
So at one point in my life, it was really not important to me. In the beginning, it obviously was, because it was still very sheltered. And I was a young woman, and I wanted my kids to have where to go to school. And then I had a point in my life where I just said, okay, so they'll be thrown out. We'll move. But at this point in my life, I can say that I really value what they're getting in their schools. And no, I do not love everything about it. But when I weigh the pros and cons, I value the chinuch system, the education system, very much.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So I think that what they're learning is very, in a way that they won't get anywhere else, is just the way they teach Judaism. And I know that every year there's a different Rebbe, a different teacher for the boys. So I can't know what's going to be next year. But And last year, my son had a Rebbe that I really didn't like, and I had to counteract a lot of the things that he learned in school. So if he would come home and say something just didn't sit right with my values, I had to counteract that. And I couldn't go and say, oh, your Rebbe is wrong. Like I can't just, in front of him, just say something like that. But I was able to teach him in a way, my values, in a way that was really important to me, and that it counteracted what they learned in school. Baruch Hashem, this year, both of my sons and my daughter have very good teachers, and I'm very calm and confident that they're learning things that are important to me as well as important to them.
In the secular media, there's a lot of coverage about boys not getting secular education. Are you concerned about that?
No, I'm concerned about their bad English, but that's just very physical. I'm not concerned about them not knowing anything about like some things that I didn't learn in school were like proper manners or like, certain things that I just didn't learn, but I teach it to them at home. So I'm not concerned.
Are you concerned about them not being able to speak English properly? They speak Yiddish at home, right?
They speak Yiddish at home. So that's one thing I am concerned about. I feel like they're going to have a lot to learn when they get older, but it's not enough for me to say, okay, let's just drop it. The pros still outweigh the cons.
Can you tell me some more pros? Like, what do you find they get from physical?
First of all, it's a community. That's first. They have a lot of friends that I like. They have a feeling of belonging. They have just a sense of being somewhere that is so, I don't even know the words to explain it, but like, yeah, just a feeling of belonging and a feeling of community. They have where to turn to if something, versus when you go to a smaller school, there's not much support around them just because it's smaller.
I get it. Listen, I left Satmar with my son, so I know what you gain and what you lose, and you get a very strong support system in Satmar.
Yeah. Yeah, but don't get me wrong. I had a point where I wanted to take them out. I was doing so bad religiously. I was like, what are they going to teach them there? It's a whole bunch of garbage. I had that point in my life. I've gotten over it by seeing that, non-extreme is too good. Either extreme is not good for kids when they're still learning and developing their brains. But again, I counteract the things that I feel are not right, and the things that are right, I'm appreciative of that. But I definitely had my journey of I would just want to take them out from the school because what they're learning is so extreme. I've had that. And again, with a lot of therapy for myself, I started seeing that, it's not as bad as I thought it was, and that have options of, just counteracting certain actions at home.
Some people will say that causes the kids to be confused. Are you?
Yes, I hear that. That's why I say I would never go and say something the opposite of what his Rebbe said. But let's say if my son comes home, I'm trying to think of an example, and I'll say something along the lines of, I don't know, I'm trying to think, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Let's say women can drive.
Okay, yes, I've had that. Okay, so I have a friend who drives. I have more than one. And my son would come home and he would see my friend with her car and he would say, that's so funny. Like, women aren't supposed to drive. And I'll say, a lot of people do and a lot of people don't. And it's okay. We're all different. There's no one right way to do things. I know your Rebbe said that women don't drive, but this is just for our community. And then there are a million other ways to be a proper Jew without this, with driving or without certain things that he said.
What do you think is going to happen from this interview? Like, are you nervous?
Just a little.
Yeah.
But like I said, I feel that what I do is important. So I mean, there are so many things that I said on my Instagram account in the past that could have hurt me, that could have come back to bite me. I feel like Hashem is protecting me, honestly.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I so appreciate you sharing your journey. Do you live in Kiryas Joel or in the periphery?
I live in the outskirts.
In the outskirts,
but
got it.
We still send our kids to the typical modesty and everything. We're still very much part of the community.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who live in the outskirts, but you grew up. Very many. You grew up in the.
I grew up in
the stew, in the stew. That our expression is in the chalent stew.
Yeah.
Fradel, I want to thank you so much for sharing. I'm so moved. For me personally, it's very interesting to hear because. I don't know, when I had a smartphone, they came after me from the school system. I think maybe something is changing. Maybe there is a recognition that there is a need for a certain diet. I don't know. I have no idea. But I think like what you do, I find it very encouraging because I did not want to tear my life to a million pieces in order for me to have a voice, in order for me to be able to express myself, to make some changes. But I didn't find that there was room to do that. And the fact that you do find room to do that, I find that very encouraging. And I'm happy for you. And I wish you so much good things in your journey. So I am going to link your Instagram in the video description. Should we do anything else? No.
I think we're good.
Your website for photography.
Oh, okay. You can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Any final thoughts we didn't cover?
No, I
Okay.
appreciate you getting the time to sit with me and listen.
I love talking
It's
to
been a
you.
pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, Frattle.